Okay, guys, so welcome to our next discussion. And we have Charlie McKenna, Lions under 14 last season, now promoted to the under 16s. And then we also have Marcos Lopez from Nevada in America, in the USA, from Phoenix. So we're going to get the American perspective from Marcos on this. And we also have Adi Abbott. We have Anthony Reid, who was the vice captain of Teesside Lions. Well, was last season's vice captain. Decision on that will be made by the new Lions head coach, Mark Stuttel. We have Lions royalty in Carlos Alemano, Kaku, to those who know him. So Kaku being here is good for us as it gives a different global perspective. So we have Kaku is from Argentina in South America. We have Adi from the Caribbean. We have Marcos from Nevada in the USA. And then we have Europeans in myself, Charlie, and Anthony. So we've got a good spread of perspectives. So I just want to open up first. And I think we'll go to Marcos first and ask, before we go through different segments, ask off the cuff, what is your perspective?
I think personally, European basketball, I think, produces the best players for adapting to the professional level, as far as people playing a role and being okay with that. Good ball movement and spacing. I think those things are taught at an earlier age. Spending my time in LA, I got to see why LA produces so many professional NBA players. And I think they bring like a one-on-one style and grit that is hard to reproduce anywhere else in the world. So you see a lot of good individual talent up there, but you do see a lot of players that struggle when they get to the professional level that don't know these things about spacing and playing a role, or not being okay with it because they're used to being the man.
Yeah.
So I think European basketball, definitely, from what I saw, it was easy for me because I grew up learning the correct way of playing to find spacing, getting my own shots without having to dribble, scoring any way I can, being a part of the team, which I think is only something that Europeans do really well at, which is why we see players like Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis. They kind of adapt really well when they get to that level because they've been playing that way their whole life versus having to learn it, at the age of 21, So I definitely think European basketball holds the best style.
Okay, that's interesting because there is. I was thinking initially you were going to come in from an American perspective and support the NBA style of basketball. Credit to yourself as well. One thing I also remember about you as a player was your knowledge of the game and ability in the game to play on and off the ball was absolutely phenomenal. One of the best point guards we've had play for the club. And we've had a lot of guards, but in terms of true point guards, there are very few that stand with yourself, Marcos. And you're right in the way that you learn how to play the game properly. So how was it that you learned how to play the game properly, but others through the American system maybe didn't? Or
I had a coach growing up young, and I was a terrible player. I wasn't naturally good at the sport. So my coach would tell me, he was like, "You are not good enough to score right now by yourself. You need to find another way to stay involved." So learning those tricks until I did have the skill to score for myself helped me stay on the court. But then I carried it with me everywhere I went because I realized no matter where you are, you might have somebody on your team that doesn't want to pass the ball, or different situations you may find yourself in. So scoring is scoring. So if I can score off no dribbles, I'd much rather do that than take 10 or 12 to get to the basket. I will say that the LA style, that kind of grittiness, they definitely learn a spacing that's NBA style. These I've seen eighth graders going to tournaments playing with the NBA three, and that's far away. And that spacing becomes almost like football or soccer, with how much space there is in between players. So there's definitely a big difference, but I think overall players are developed more over in that area, whereas in LA only the strongest survive. And I say specifically LA because I think other states are coming up, but New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, these are still the meccas of basketball. For that same reason, I think city life brings about a certain personality that you have to survive even in regular life that translates on the court.
I suppose it's numbers as well. There's a huge those huge population centers. The more people you have, the more players you have. They're going to feed their way through, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they definitely are. I will say an aspect of maybe American basketball that I didn't quite see as much in Europe was kind of trash talking. And it wasn't even big when I was growing up, but when I kind of saw being at the Drew League for 5 years, watching these players not only stand up for themselves in their game, but verbally too, because people will try to bully you. So I think that develops a sense of confidence. And
so were you a fan of that?
I wasn't at first, but then I saw the necessity of it because you're going to get bullied. Someone's going to go out there and try to bully you. And are you going to stay quiet? Are you going to, let your game talk for you, which a lot of players do as well?
Yeah. For me personally, I hate trash talking. And I think that the statement you made there, if your game is good enough, let your game do the talking. You don't need to, you don't need to kind of, I just don't like trash talking. I think it's disrespectful. I think you're moving away from the game, and I just don't think there's a need for that. That just makes me feel uncomfortable. Adi, if we can move to Adi, Caribbean perspective, what do you think?
Yeah, so I think to be fair, I think at least in St. Lucia, the basketball style was heavily influenced, I guess, by the American influence, being so close to North America. So you do have a lot of people wanting to go out and be the scorer, dominated by the icons. You want to be the next Kobe, you want to be the next MJ, you want to be the next KD. So a lot of people are dominant on that sense in terms of their individual development and their individual talents. But I think, to be fair, in terms of regional competitions across the island and across the Caribbean, I think they do emphasize strong team play. So I think there's a good balance there. So you get people kind of prioritizing the fundamentals at an early age before, they kind of, I remember growing up and always hearing like MJ and Kobe aren't MJ and Kobe because of their God-given talent. It's repetition in the gym every day. Like, you've got to master your footwork before you can do that turnaround fadeaway. You've got to understand how to elevate on your jump shot, on a normal jump shot, before you can extend the leg out and all sorts. So I think there's a good balance. But sorry?
So the fundamentals were important.
Yeah, I think they really drove home the importance of the fundamentals, because you might be tall among your group of friends, but that might be short to the other group of friends. But if you've got fundamentals, you can, plug into a different system and play your role wherever. So I thought that was quite good.
Okay, that's good. We can talk about success, achievement, systems, programs, development patterns. Charlie, you're a young player growing up. What is the best basketball right now at the start without going through this debate?
Like where everyone's involved, because I think when you're younger, you need to like find your feet a bit. So like when everyone's involved, you can see what you're good at and like what makes you a good player.
Okay, so in terms of the leagues that are around now, the leagues, the international teams, who is the best?
Or country or like continent? Yeah,
country. Yeah.
Okay. I'd say like, I'm not sure, like the Spanish or Italian. I'm not sure. Okay. I like the.
Don't any more just yet. But you've gone for the Spanish or the Italians. Anthony, what would you say best at the moment?
If we're talking about pure skill,
how good the players are at basketball, I think it has to be the NBA. But in terms of development, I think Spain are definitely up there.
Okay, and with Spanish links, Carlos Alimano, Kaku, you're from Argentina. Argentina, the fourth in terms of FIBA rankings, the fourth best team in the world. Who do you think is the best at the moment?
Well, I had to agree with Ant. I mean, if you pick up players and you get them all together and they want to play, I mean, there's no way to beat the American players, because even though talking about basketball styles or system, they don't need to get together and do a good basketball game. They just beat the other team just because they're better players in terms of skills and abilities. Talking about basketball itself, I think the best countries are working on based on the leagues and all that. Obviously, are like you say, Spain and Italy probably, but like our league works in a similar style. Obviously, we don't have the money to work in the same way they do. Talking about venues and money to put in gyms and all that. In terms of the way we practice the basketball or we try to play the basketball, it's more similar to the European style. And I personally like a lot the European style of basketball. Like, even though I am from South America, and like you said, Argentina is being probably in the top of the best five team in the world for the last probably 10, 12 years. Since we got an Olympic medal, we lost a couple of World Cup finals. But even though our guys on the national team are from Argentina, most of them play in the European basketball, on the NBA basketball. So the basketball style we play when we get to the international tournaments is a European style. But I still like it more, the European basketball, because that we were talking that topic. It's like the guys in the European basketball, they try to play more like a basketball, like a team basketball. They pass the ball, they make the game better. Obviously, the final touches give to every player, you know what I mean, with the personal skills. But it comes from everything comes from like a team basketball.
I think that's the perspective I have is that if you're looking at, I think we have to break this down into different sections, and one section being individuals and one section being team basketball. So if we're talking about individually gifted players, I think the NBA players they have it. But if you're talking about team basketball, I think there are very, very few teams in the NBA that actually play a proper team basketball. I mean, San Antonio is a team that would spring to mind as one that would try and play team basketball. Golden State Warriors, possibly to a degree, but you still have occasions where Steph Curry will shoot from the half court, and whether it goes in or not, that's not a good shot to take. It's not the right message to send to young aspiring players. This is what I do just because I can. Just because you can do it doesn't mean that you should do it. So I think that in the first breaking down of the topic, I think we have to look at individuals versus team. Kaku, you mentioned about the fact that you would much prefer to watch a good game of team basketball, playing basketball in the way it should be played, competitive, team players trying to find the right shot, not a player trying to create his own shot. Anthony, I think you touched on the fact that the individual side of the NBA and the American system is superior to others, and maybe we can discuss why that is the case. Charlie, you mentioned, as opposed to what I thought you would have said, which was the NBA, you actually mentioned the Spanish and the Italian leagues and teams. The Italians do have strong leagues. I think they've struggled in recent years, and possibly that's down to financial side of Italy as an economic powerhouse. Teams, Portugal, Greece, there are other countries that have struggled financially, and that's had an effect on their basketball systems. But I think that it's part of the reason why I lose interest in NBA is that it's not basketball how it should be played, and I think there's far too many examples of uncoachable players because they have this elite tag to their name and they are on a pedestal which they cannot be removed from. They can basically do what they want. That's not basketball. I think for me personally, America's system is effectively an educationally aligned system in which the players that they will do multiple sports and then they'll go through high school, potentially get scholarships towards college and universities, and then if they're lucky enough and good enough, they will be drafted into the NBA to become professional players. So as a system, it's a proven successful system of development in terms of their players. And what is very evident to me is that the college system is where it stops. You have a really good developmental system and you have respect and you have the principles of basketball being instilled to all of these players. And almost as soon as they leave that college system and go into the NBA, everything is forgotten. Players become bigger. Can you imagine Michael Jordan? Of course, Michael Jordan is like, listen, I'll take that shot. I'll do this. But there's part of it that he has earned the right, I suppose, to have an opinion or to make a stance. I think I don't care how big you are as a player, the coach is ultimately the one that makes the decision. And I think it looks really bad when a player goes against that. And sometimes you have situations where LeBron is in a timeout and it's not the coach that's dictating the play, it's LeBron. And as a coach, I can't, that's not me. I mean, I've lost players in the past because, fallouts, hey, do you want to play or do you want to coach? If you want to coach, just off you go. If you're going to play, you've got to listen. And there's something that doesn't sit right with me when I see, LeBron or Dwayne Wade or Kobe or others dictating plays or doing what they want to do as opposed to what the coach wants them to do. LeBron at Cleveland Cavaliers, that was very evident. And Eric Spoelstra, Spoelstra? I don't know how to say his surname. But
I can't help you, man.
You probably get closer than me. But obviously when he came to the forefront as the coach, and he was the video analysis guy, and then he became the assistant coach and then the head coach of Miami Heat. And he was coaching LeBron James, but you could see that he was a very, very talented coach, trying to run things in the way that he wanted to. You could just see that he had a format. He knew what he was doing, knew what he was talking about. And it just seemed to me like LeBron was in the way of that. And I like LeBron as a commodity. I like LeBron as a brand. So, but I just feel that shouldn't be allowed to happen. Was it David Blatt?
Yeah.
He went to Tel Aviv. So you've got an NBA coach that made the transition, very rare transition from the NBA into Europe to coach European basketball. And he claimed that European basketball is better, far better than NBA.
Yeah, because sorry, I'll stop you. What he did was like, okay, I got to the NBA, I got to the top of the basketball, if you want to call it. I got my money. Okay, now I'm going to enjoy basketball. I go to Europe and play with guys who are gonna try to do what I want. But I kind of agree with you about players has to be players. Obviously, when you got players of the level of LeBron or Steph or those guys, there are moments that you have to let those guys give their opinion. Obviously, because they're not just good players; they also kind of understand the basketball. So it's important if your star player give you his opinion in certain moment. But definitely, I agree with you. Coach has to do. Coach has to be the one who takes the decision. And most of the moment, coach is going to put the ball in the best guy they got. But you mentioned Jordan before. He was the best. He's still the best. And there was a couple games, even final games, that he put the ball in somebody else's hands to take the last shot.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was as much as important as he took the shot. You know what I mean? He put the ball in the right guy to take a perfect shot.
I mean, I think there's an element to that, and we're going off topic here, but I think there's an element to him doing that. Was that he was writing his own story, answering questions as he has done throughout his career. When people said that he wasn't a good defender, he would go and make it happen. When they said he wasn't strong enough, he'd get stronger. When they said he couldn't shoot, he'd start to develop his shot. And then in the same sense that he doesn't pass people, he's always got to take the last second shot. Doesn't use his teammates, and then he proved that again. Listen, I'm going to pass to you. He knew cameras were on him when he was talking to Steve Kerr and saying, "Hey, be ready." He was laying his own foundation, laying his own story to show how good he is. Even though I'm not going to take the last shot, I'm still going to make the play. So, but going back to basketball and individuals versus team basketball, I think there's nothing better for me than seeing when you have a team that plays proper team basketball. If I use the example when we played Newcastle Eagles, Anthony, and we won that game. They were unbeaten. 13 games that season, numerous games the season before. I don't know what their overall unbeaten run was, but they were unbeaten, and we beat them. And we didn't beat them. We beat them convincingly. We were missing two top scorers. Our top scorer on that day, I think, was 14 points or 16 points. And we had something like 6 or 7 players in double digits. Now, that to me is proper basketball. When you have a team where, as defenders, you don't know where to look. Like if Jordan stands out, if LeBron stands out, you can work your players to minimize or to limit the damage that player can do. But if you don't know where to look, because left, right, and center, you're getting hit with points here and there, and that's nice basketball, and everybody's involved. Kaku.
Like when you got a team with an excellent player like LeBron or whatever, that guy is gonna score anyway. He's gonna be the guy who make it different. But when you get, like you said, 4 or 5 players who score also along him, you got a problem in there. You know what I mean? Because LeBron is gonna score. But if he get another 6-4 player who score, you can't stop that team. And I think a good example about that is like if you watch San Antonio Spurs through the years, when they were playing as a team, obviously Tony and Timmy and Manu, they were the 3 main players, but they won all the league title they won because they were passing the ball and any one of them could score. When they changed that a little bit, when Kawhi started to be the most important player, just put the ball in him, San Antonio stopped winning things.
Mm. When we talked about the development of players and the system in place that on the face of it, America seems really good in terms of the North America and USA, their NCAA system, college system, education aligned. From within that country, Marcos has identified some faults that are maybe, or cracks that are maybe starting to appear. I mean, the worry I had was that players seem to really respect and listen to their coaches in high school and in NCAA, and then almost when they leave that system and they become professionals, everything goes out the window. I mean, you only have to look at players like, LeBron James stands out to me the most. I don't want to pick on him because I think as a brand, he is a really strong brand and he does things and he's a great, he seems like a very good person, but I don't think I could ever coach LeBron James. I think he's an uncoachable player. He's too big a persona, too big an entity for any one coach to have an impact on him. You only have to look at Eric, I can't say his surname, but Eric Spoelstra at Miami Heat, and he struggled with him. And then who was he under at Cleveland Cavaliers?
Tyronn Lue. Yeah,
I just felt sorry for him. It was almost like he was pushed out of the team talks in timeouts. And now in LA, I think it's the same thing. It's just you get the sense that it's LeBron's picking the team, LeBron's coaching the team. LeBron is even selecting the players that are coming in and out of the club. Is that too much power for one player to have? Adi, what do you think?
I think with something like that, I think LeBron kind of earned his stature. So I think if you need a more veteran coach to coach LeBron, I think that's the problem because he's got such a good basketball mind. And like you said, because of how powerful a brand he is, I think if he doesn't feel like the coach is worthy, he tends to rebel. But I think if you had like LeBron under a Phil Jackson or those kinds of Greg Popovich, those kinds of guys, I think he'd respect them. Or even like Coach K, I think he'd respect them and then his presence reduces a bit. But Frank Vogel, he's put Indy out so many times when he was in Cleveland, when he was back in the Cavs. He might not respect Frank Vogel as much. But I think Jason Kidd's probably getting to him, and I think he respects veteran coaches, and he's not had many of them in his career.
Okay, so has that been an intentional move by owners, or has that been influenced maybe by LeBron in terms of the coaches that they bring in? Do they bring in somebody that is controllable by LeBron, or do you think that's just a coincidence?
I wouldn't say with Cavs. I don't think because who wanted to coach Cavs before? I think with the Laker job, they were desperate for a good coach, but then who wanted the pressure to succeed with LeBron? So I think it's been a circumstance of who LeBron's become, as well as the three different teams he's gone to. But I don't think every player is like that, though. I just think with LeBron, he's at that level now where it's championship or bust every year. And, because he's so basketball savvy as well, even as a coach, you almost want to feed off of what he's saying. And this is from someone who's not really a LeBron fan.
I take your point. I just think that in any sport, I think that the manager or the coach of that team, you bring in players under that coach, and that you do what the coach wants. If you lose that situation, if you lose that hierarchy, I just think that the team is doomed.
I agree.
And whether the coach is right or wrong, whether you have to row in the same direction. Otherwise, what's the point of having a coach in the first place? And who's to say that LeBron is right in the decisions he makes? Ultimately, the guidance has to come from the coach. Kaku, in South America, is that a situation that's is it widely spread in America, South America, and Argentina? Whether the player outweighs the coach?
I think it has to do with different basketball school. No, it doesn't happen here. Obviously, we're talking about LeBron. There's not many LeBrons around. And I agree with Adi about probably if LeBron is coached by Pop or any of the greatest coaches, he might respect them more, or they might join decisions together, like we were talking the other day. But no, in the South American school, and I think as well in the European school, coaches are the one who take the decisions. Obviously, coach can do nothing without the players, but no, I think in the outside NBA basketball, coaches are the one who take decisions.
Okay, so I mean, this is important for young players growing up like Charlie. They have to recognize that they're at an early age of their development, and they're relying on the coach to direct them in a way that is beneficial for them and the team. And sometimes they might not understand the decisions that are being made. When they watch LeBron James, is that? I mean, surely that has a negative impact on their. If they see LeBron do it, they want to do it. Does LeBron have a responsibility, regardless of what he thinks, to do the right thing and just listen to the coach? Anthony, what do you think?
Yeah, I understand completely what you mean. I've even experienced myself players that think they know a lot about basketball, that watch the NBA, and they'll say to the coach, "Oh, but we need to do this because in the NBA they do this or whatever."
Is that Chris Emerson?
Don't give names.
Oh, sorry.
I think you are right. There is a big influence there, but I think in terms of like whether it's the player's responsibility, I don't know. I feel like there's a different relationship there in the NBA. I think a coach in the NBA, I don't know. It's a very different role to a lot of other organizations because I think a lot of the times the head coach doesn't run subs. They have someone that manages minutes. They have assistant coaches for shooting, assistant coaches for this, assistant coaches for that.
Wow, I didn't realize it was so bad.
So
coaching should be relatively simple in the way that if you know what you're doing, you react to the game. You try to win the game with the best ingredients and tools that you have.
I just think
sharing minutes.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing, especially when at that level. For example, on the Lakers, you've got guys like Rajon Rondo who are like students of the game. That they know every player that the other team runs. They tell a lot of the younger guys, do this, do that. Yeah, I'm not sure what the role of an actual NBA coach is. I think it's a bit overrated what they do. Whereas in Europe, 100%, like coaches can win games, win seasons with like a team that might not be the best just because of the system that they've got in place.
So in a coaching perspective, what we're seeing is that the coaches in European leagues, potentially South American leagues, would definitely have more of an impact on the game and an impact on a team's chances of winning league titles. And you in the NBA, it's more of they're filling a space. Is that right, Anth?
Yeah, I mean, it's a coaching staff in the NBA, isn't it? And there's a lot of people in there. And what each coach's actual responsibility is I'm not 100% sure. But I know from my experience and watching the EuroLeague and stuff like that, you have a lot more duties as a coach over here at the top level compared to the NBA. So, yeah.
I mean, there is a definite. We talked about this in a previous discussion, but there is a definite commercialization of the NBA where it has lost its competitive element. So that system where players get rested, I always, I felt that. You could see that. I didn't realize that there would be an assistant coach that was monitoring, player production and minutes to ensure that they were saved for future games and years to maximize the return for the NBA as a market. That's crazy. I think that's possibly why people are starting to lose a little bit of interest in the NBA as an entity, because of the it seems like the teams maybe the winning is not important, or the game, or the ethos of the game is not as important as the pounds and dollars that they make. Whereas in the European leagues, you can definitely sense that. You know, every game is important. They want to win. It seems like it is a battle, like the old 1980s and 90s NBA, where every game was important. You know, you wanted to win. You wanted to beat records. I want to touch on the team versus individual. What is more important? Is the team more important, or are individual players more important to win a game? Marcos, what do you think?
I definitely think the team aspect will always play an importance. But I think every team does need one person to be the me guy, because in certain situations,
By me guy, are you meaning be the Marcos Lopez?
Maybe a little
very
bit.
Arrogant.
Maybe a little bit. No. In certain situations where you can't draw something up and you need something to happen, if you only have, if you have full of team guys, maybe they throw the ball around and say who's going to shoot it. You do need at least one person that says, I'm going to shoot it. I'm going to take control. I think the problem comes is when you have 3 or 4 players that are trying to be the me player, and that's when it throws the scale off balance. Now you don't have that synergy. Late in the game, you might not get the shot you want because 3 or 4 players think they're the ones that should be taking it.
So which team in the NBA would you say is the closest? Because I think what you're saying is you need players that are skillful and individually skillful and able to turn it on in a game, and I agree with that. I mean, that's even at Lions training, I proud our club on the ability to develop the individual skills of players and to turn players that were relatively low level or beginners into productive players. I mean, last season, teammates of Charlie's in the under-14 team were massively evident in this. Max, I mean, Charlie, you've been with us for quite a while, but relatively new players in Max Smithson and Ben Grimes and Freddie Williams, that they came out of nowhere. I mean, Jacob Rush had been playing a year, and then he was becoming one of the most dominant players in the league. And I think that the key is, from a coaching perspective, is to have as many talented individual players as you can, but the buy into what you originally said in your first statement was to buy into that team mentality, that it doesn't have to be about them. They can play a role within the team, and their turn might be tonight's game, or it might be next week's game, or but they know they're doing it for the name on the front of the shirt, not the name on the back of the shirt. And if there's one team within the NBA that would possibly project those philosophies, I would maybe say San Antonio Spurs, where you have, oh, there we go, Anthony's wearing representing, but you have that team under, I would say, a proper coach. I mean, Greg Popovich, he's a proper coach. It's like his way or the highway. That's what I want to see in a coach. He is the most important person within that club, and that's how I think it should be. When you have a coach, they should be the ultimate. And if there's problems behind the scenes and the owners have to do something, that's behind the scenes. If there's problems on the court, that's down to the coach, and he has to sort that out. Whether it's LeBron, I don't look at LeBron and look at whoever else is number 12 and see a difference. As a coach, I'm looking at number 1 and number 12, and number 1 is just as equally as important as number 12. And my job is, how do I get number 12 better? How do I get them more productive? And it might be a role accepting, position in the game. But if number 1 didn't toe the line, they have to go. And the commercial power of number 1 is spoiling the coaching and winning side, I think, of the game. And when you see that as either if you're involved in basketball and you see that and you know that somehow something's not right, I think that just affects me when it turns me off. But San Antonio, when you have the likes of Manu Ginobili and you have the likes of even Kawhi Leonard when he was there, Tony Parker, David Robinson, who's a big guy?
Duncan.
Tim Duncan. You know, and so many more players. But you've got a squad of players that are capable of doing their thing in the game, but they seem to abide by the system and do the right thing. And I feel like it's an enjoyable game to watch the game played in the right way and be successful with it. That to me that's the ultimate win in basketball. If you have a freak player in terms of a perfect DNA in LeBron that can come around and disrupt things, that's not the team winning. That's LeBron and luck, giving you the fortune to go out and win. But when you have, if LeBron gets injured, you're screwed. But if you have a team system that anyone can pick up the slack if someone else drops or if somebody gets hurt and someone else, the system takes over, I think if you can develop that, you're unbeatable. Yep.
I agree with you in most of the things.
Good. Right, we'll stop there.
But I think about it's a mix. It's a mixture between what Mark.
Kaku?
Who's gonna win things?
Kaku, do you know sign language?
What? Sorry, my brother is calling me, man.
Well,
to become a winning team, you need to have a team system like San Antonio did have. I think San Antonio was the most European NBA basketball team. That's why we all love it, because all the people who's talking here, we prefer European style because it's more a team basketball. But at the end, they had those players who make the difference. Like Marco says, I want the ball. I want to finish it. They had three guys who could manage that situation. Duncan, Parker, Ginobili. Any of those guys could make the difference at the end. And if you are a good team, but you don't have those guys who can take the ball at the end and take that decision, you won't be a winner team. You're gonna be around, but you need that. I think it's a mixture between. You definitely need the team basketball, but you also need that star, that important guy who's gonna take the last shot, whatever happened, or is gonna take the right decision at the end.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's, and when I was referring to team basketball, I always want, it's not equal opportunities. You're not, as soon as a player develops to a certain level, you don't say, right, you stop there and don't get any better. You want players to be as good as they can be. And I think you are right. There's times where you need your player, or the player, as Marcus would say, to take over the game or to take the shot that you need them to take. And players, size-wise, position-wise, will have different roles and different strengths on the team and in different situations. So no, I think. Well, I agree with you, and I think we're all kind of agreed. I'm not disappointed, but I brought on Adi and Marcos, and I thought that they were going to kind of lean towards the NBA. I think Kaku has highlighted the fact that everybody's aligned in their preference to, I suppose, European style of basketball. I mean, I don't want it to be a European versus American thing and that European is better than American. I think it's team basketball. I think it's team basketball and a mentality to win. I mean, I saw some of the ABA games, and for those who will remember Ralph Bucci, and for me, the best player that's played in Britain, Ralph Bucci, phenomenal player. I mean, he emulated the ultimate player and the ultimate attitude. Didn't trash talk. Let his game do the talking. Was a nice guy, but he was celebrated up and down the country from opposing fans, from opposing players. Just had the ultimate respect in the game. There wasn't one player that could look at him and say, "Yeah, he was a great player, but what an arsehole." And I think if you trash talk, if you have that side of your game where it's got the nastiness to it, there's always something that can pull you down. There's always someone that can say, "Yeah, but this." And the ultimate goal for any player should be not only on the court, off the court, but in every aspect of your game, is that you can't be pulled down in any way. And Ralph was one of the few players that was able to do that from what I could see close perspective.
I agree. I play with Ralph, and I agree with you.
Welcome back, Kaku.
Sorry.
So I was asking. You remember Ralph?
Yeah, I agree with you. Sorry, I'm gonna have to leave, guys. I've been called 3 times now. I agree with you about Ralph. He made his career just talking with basketball. He didn't talk at all. But because it has to do with the school basketball, you know what I mean? I agree with you. The guy has to talk with the basketball, not with mom.
Let your game do the talking.
But it depends where you play it. Also, you know what I mean? We're talking about professional and we're talking about high level, right? We're talking European, whatever higher level. And I think you can. I mean, you have to talk with basketball. But when you play street ball or whatever, you need to talk. I mean, it's depends where you play it, I think.
Yeah, I think you're alluding to what Marcos had said, that the environment dictates the type of player that you are projecting. And maybe if that environment, maybe that is not the environment you should be playing in. If it is that negative kind of style, maybe it's not the best place to play. I don't know. I mean, maybe that's all you have. Yeah, I mean, it is like the street, isn't it? Survival of the fittest. Anyway, I don't think there's any right or wrong decision. It's just personal preference as to what is the best. And what we look like we've all agreed upon is that the European, or shall we say, the team style of basketball is the best style of basketball. So in that sense, if we can narrow it down even further, discounting the NBA, with the exception of San Antonio Spurs, is which is the best country for producing players? Is it Argentina? Is it Serbia? Is it Australia? Something that's remarkable about Australia is that for a country with a population of about 20 million, so a relatively low population when you consider the USA has 400 million, the UK has 60 million, France 65 million. When you consider the size of these populations, and Australia is the third ranked team in the FIBA rankings, that's quite a feat, really, isn't it? So system-wise, surely they've got to be up there in terms of how they produce or how they nurture their young athletes. Can you name? I mean, who can name an Australian player?
A few.
Anthony, go on. Name some Australians.
You've got Paddy Mills, who played for the Spurs.
Is Andrew Bogut one?
Yeah, who played for the Warriors.
Joe Ingles?
Yeah, Joe Ingles. There's quite a few. I mean, I'd have to look at the team, but they've got a decent roster. They've got one of the higher amounts of NBA players when it comes to playing FIBA games.
Ben Simmons, he's Australian too.
Ben Simmons?
Yep.
Right. Was he in the rock band Kiss?
Wrong Simmons. You got the wrong one.
Okay. So, and then I need one more, just to kind of my own mind. I need one more Australian player.
Aaron Baines.
Who?
Yeah.
Baines.
Joe
Really?
Ingles for
We
Utah.
had Joe Ingles.
Deladova.
Who?
Matthew Deladova played on the Cavs during their
No.
championship seasons.
No.
He's not as bad as Bogut.
Oh, I don't know. No. Okay, did you know that Kyrie Irving is Australian?
Technically, somehow.
I did not know that.
Yeah, he's got dual citizenship with the USA, but he was born in Melbourne. So that's, I think, an interesting perspective. Charlie, did you know that?
No.
Okay, thanks for that. So in terms of teams, in Australia, you've got teams such as Melbourne United, Sydney Kings, Perth Wildcats, and their league, the NBL, is really flourishing. They've invested a lot of time, energy, and money into that. They're attracting crowds of 15,000, 20,000. They've got good broadcast rights over there. People are able to watch the games. They're able to participate in the games. So that looks like that system is flourishing really well. And aside of that, because that's only recently, aside of that, they seem to have a system in place that is developing not only basketball players, but all sports, really. I mean, Australia is one of those countries that is just sports-minded. So I think if any country was to look at, how they can improve, Australia might be one of the formats to take inspiration from. Obviously, in number one of the world rankings, the FIBA world rankings, is the USA. Number two is Spain. So, and I think that, I mean, outside of the NBA, because if you look at the ultimate aspiration, I suppose, for any basketball player, not just in terms of the financial reward, but in terms of the pinnacle of basketball, you would say it would be the NBA. And I think that's possibly the commercial side of it, because it's so big and powerful. People aren't looking at what is the best basketball or what is the best basketball league. They're effectively looking at what's right in front of their eyes. And because of the exposure that the NBA has and the history of the NBA, that is the ultimate goal for any player. But if we were to try and highlight some other leagues, what other leagues outside of the NBA would you say, and you can say by country, you don't have to name the league, but Marcos, are you aware of any other leagues that you would say, well, that is a strong league, that's the next best league, that is the best league?
I think obviously Spain produces a lot of players that do end up transitioning to the NBA. It does seem like Australia is on the rise. I think, whatever you think about him as a player, LaMelo Ball, he went there. I think he brought a lot of attention to that league. And not only that, he invested money back into the team he played for. So money is looks like pushed in that direction as far as other countries' basketball. I think we'll probably see Australia keep rising. Just from that, I think they do have a chance to maybe outgrow some European teams that, due to financial issues, they're not in the same place that they were.
Yeah. And I think you're right. And I think also when you look at geographically and economically, Australia is in the same area as China. They have close links with China. So what you have there is the potential of a billion Chinese that will take an interest in the Australian leagues. And that will have a massive effect on the commercial aspect of their basketball and the future productivity, not just economically, but in terms of on the court success. Charlie, are you aware of any other leagues that would be strong leagues?
I seen some of the Chinese playoffs and they were being streamed. It looked like it was like a decent setup. It had like some decent players in there, and it had like quite a good atmosphere too. Well, the ones I've seen before that, after, not in lockdown, but yeah.
But were the players predominantly Chinese or were they overseas players? What was the situation there?
I think the majority were Chinese or Asian.
Right.
There was a few. I think there was a few foreigners there, but I think they were European. Some of them.
Right.
I don't think there was that many Americans there, but it looked quite good.
The Chinese, in terms of sports development and sports investment, the Chinese recently, and we're talking about maybe 4 or 5 years ago, their aim was to match the world's spend on sports. So if the rest of the world combined was to spend $1 trillion on sport, they were aiming to match that themselves in terms of their investment. So effectively, they were rolling out cities from the start, from afresh, and built around sports. So they are taking it seriously. I think that before the Chinese league and the Chinese system can be taken with any kind of credibility, I think that they have to, at the moment it seems like they're just throwing money at something and hoping that it will work. And I think only time will tell whether they've papered over cracks or whether they've built the foundation up as maybe as they should. But certainly they have the facilities. They've invested a lot of money into bringing expertise and skill sets over, whether it be on the court or off the court. So they do have the the desire to improve, and I'm sure money goes a long way. So I'm sure they will do that. In terms of players, though, I mean, the last player I remember, Jeremy Lin. Who was the big guy, Yao Ming?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of Chinese players, it still seems like that they're a way off in terms of consistently producing solid players. Marcos mentioned the Spanish league, and you have Real Madrid, you have Barcelona, you have Valencia, and in terms of players, as a starting five, if you look at Pau Gasol, Marc Gasol, Ricky Rubio, Sergi Ibaka, is that four? Yeah, if you look at a starting four, then that's a strong team. I mean, they've got some really good players. They, not only another one of Kaku's friends was is it Campasso? Who does anybody know? Is it Campasso? I can't remember. I mean, but he plays in the Spanish league, and I think he plays for Real Madrid. He was voted the Europeans' best player. I mean, that league attracts really high-profile players, and it's a strong incentive not to play in the NBA. In some respects, you can get multi-million-pound contracts. You can get the adulation of huge stadiums, big followings, and yeah, I think there is. If there was one league that was an incentive or a consideration not to play in the NBA, I think it would be the Spanish league.
It's like football kind of matches with it as well. Like I'm not really that into football, but I've heard some players, like pretty good football players, go to China to get there because they get like twice as much money as they do playing in the Premier League or something. So it's like attracts quite a lot of people for the money reasons.
Of course, and money is a huge incentive. And I think if I said to anybody here that I'll give you £1 million to come play for Lions, I'm sure you would all consider it. So there is, whether it would be good or not. I mean, it's a factor in life that you need money. Money makes the world go round for the right or wrong reasons. When we're talking about proper basketball, the basketball that we would like to see produced, I think we've shifted away from the NBA as an end game. And we've looked at Spain, Australia as an up and rising, Argentina. I mean, Argentina, even there are some countries where money doesn't get in the way. So obviously, China, Australia, America has massive investment of funding, finance, and that helps their cause in terms of producing entertainment, teams and players. But there are also countries like Argentina and Brazil to an extent, and then you have areas like Serbia, Lithuania, Italy, Slovenia, where the money is not there, but for some reason, some way, they produce players, and not just players, but phenomenal specimens of players. And if we just mentioned some of the Serbians, I mean, Bogdan did. I can't say it. Charlie, go for it. King's player. Bogdan Bogdanovic. Okay.
Oh, Bogdanovic.
Yeah, thanks for the help. And Nikolai
Jokic.
Yeah. So what? I mean, what a player! What a player! His passing ability for his size, unbelievable. And this is where was it Marcos that said this, or was it Kaku? Where their understanding of the game and their intelligence in basketball is just at a different level. And then, Lithuania, you've got, it's like a religion in Lithuania. I don't think there's many Lithuanians that play in the NBA, but there are lots of Lithuanians around Europe. And even in the UK, if you come across a Lithuanian, you can guarantee that they play basketball like we play football. It's in their system, it's in their blood that they play basketball. And some phenomenal players. I mean, even in the National League in England, you have a team of Lithuanians where it's all Lithuanians, and they're incredible. Italy, we've got Gallinari, we've got Bellinelli. I'm not good at reading.
Just keep going.
I just think if I just mumble words, sound a little bit like Kaku, I might get away with it. So, but Italy produces players, and they have a good system. I think they've got is it the Gold League and the Silver League in Italy? Is that the system they have? And then when you look at Slovenia, and you've got the likes of Luka Doncic and Goran Dragic, Slovenia, I don't know, it just seems like that's the hot place right now. Luka Doncic, he's only, 21, 22?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's incredible. He was in Real Madrid.
Yeah. He was
the star player at 16.
Yeah, he was massively produced by Spain though as well, I think. Some credit to the Spanish.
Yes. Yeah, I suppose, yeah. He was a product of the Spanish system, but not what age did he go over to Spain? Was it about 9 or 10?
It was quite young, yeah. I'm not sure the actual age, I can't remember.
But he had actually developed to such a level that they took a risk on taking a young child, a pre-teen, to their system. So I think that the Serbian system of developing players, has to take credit for that. Who's one of the top coaches is, I'm going to get this wrong, but Zeljko Obradovic. Has anybody heard of him?
No.
Well, he's the Serbian coach, and he's the coach of Fenerbahce in Turkey. And they recently won I think it was the Euro Cup. Fenerbahce are a huge European side. Turkey, again, another team that just have a really good system of basketball in their country. But yeah, I think that. Yeah, I was going to say Serbia. There's something going on in Serbia. There's something in the water in Serbia that seems to be able to produce exceptionally talented players. And whereas I would have said Lithuania, Latvia, maybe it's 5-6 years ago, it seems like Serbia is the place right now. In terms of the best league, I think I would lean towards Spain and their system of basketball. I think I would lean towards Spain. Charlie, what's your thoughts? Would you agree with that? Would you disagree? Would you have anything else to say?
Yeah, I like Spain's the way they play basketball. I don't really look into the European leagues. I look more on the play style of players. But from what I've heard about the play style, it must come from something good, and like people must be attracted to the basketball they play. So I assume it would be good.
Yeah.
As well as like other countries from that sector of Europe, I think it'll be great.
And Adi, what would your thoughts be?
I'd say, just because I don't watch that much Euro basketball myself. But I would say, the Spanish League seems to be producing a lot of great talent. And it reminded me of one of the things I guess we have missed from the American system. I know Marcus mentioned it earlier. As much as we were talking about the team sport, and, as players, former players, lovers of the game in that sense, we'd like to see great team basketball. But from a spectator perspective, that's one of the things the US does do well. It's the flashiness, it's the entertainment side, it's the freak athleticism. And I think it's interesting because you see a player like Luka Doncic, who has the fundamentals, put into the NBA spotlight, and you're seeing him get a bit more, you're seeing like the flashiness more. And so seeing that kind of hybrid, it made me realize, that's one of the things the American style, maybe, it's that grit, having to defend yourself from the street ball. It gives you that flair so that when you dunk, it's not just a layup. If you can pound it down on someone, you put that guy on a poster. You don't just go nice and easy. You tomahawk it on him. So maybe that's one of the flashes of the American system. Because we all enjoy posters.
Yeah, but I think that's all well and good in the All-Star game. But when it comes to the nitty-gritty and the competitive element of winning this league, maybe the flashiness has to take second place to getting the job done. And there is a time, I think you're right, as a player myself, I love the skilled side element of basketball. I'm very much a tricky player myself. I like to go through my legs, the crossover, a fancy pass. So I get that, and I think it has to be done at the right time. There has to be a reason for it. If I go around my back and through my legs and there's no one there, well, what was the purpose for me doing that? If a player was to come and try to take it off me on the right side and I go through my legs and then I switch direction, wrap it around the back, there was a reason for that. So, yes, have the ability to do it, but also I think there's a time and place for when it's called upon.
So what I'm saying, that's what would affect the league. So I think with for the Spanish league and maybe the Australian league to become more mainstream like the NBA has done, you're going to need those explosive dunkers. People want to see a windmill on a fast break in a game, not just a layup. That's what I'm saying.
Of course. I think they have it though. I think they have. Anthony, you watch EuroLeague basketball. They do have highlight players in those leagues. I think that the problem is, and maybe this is where the overall problem is, in terms of our exposure to basketball, the NBA has a monopoly on that. So we can't get access to other basketball because, it's always the lure of the NBA. You open the window and the NBA is there. Maybe as if we had a little bit more access to the Spanish league, that would actually have a positive effect not only on our appreciation of their game and the style of game, but it might actually be a good thing for young players within our club and players around the world to watch. Maybe it would open their eyes to an alternative.
True.
Marcos, what's your thoughts on that?
I definitely think with that kind of flashiness, there's an element that is important in the game in the right time, as you were saying. You might get in your opponent's head by jamming on him instead of getting a layup, and maybe he's thinking twice about trying to block somebody's shot on the next play down. But yeah, it's hard because the NBA shows the finished product, and the EuroLeague shows kind of the path to get there. And what's the problem is when you see the finished product, like, oh, he just went down there and threw it on somebody. They didn't see the development that it took to get there and to understand what is going on in his mind to make that decision. So it is hard because you obviously see it, you want to do it, but you don't know how to get there. You see B, you don't see how you got from A to B quite so well.
Yeah, good point. I think that's a really good point and well articulated. I think that you've always been a very clear and concise person. I enjoy listening to Marcos. Anthony, if you can wrap this stage up, you've watched EuroLeague basketball. You've obviously been involved in. You were supposed to be refereeing prior to the COVID outbreak. You were supposed to be refereeing in Sweden, and so you have probably more experience and interaction in European basketball than maybe most of us. To round us off, what's your thoughts?
I think one of the biggest things I appreciate about the sort of European game, and you can see it in the European guys that play in the NBA, is just that like positionless sort of everyone at every height can do everything. Obviously, Luka Doncic, like fairly tall guy for his position, but he's pretty much a point guard. He can put the ball on the floor. He can shoot from anywhere. He can pass really well. And then the bigs as well. I think someone we didn't mention who is Spanish as well is Nikola Mirotic, who he's played for quite a few NBA teams, but he went back to the EuroLeague this season. This season, I think. And he left quite a bit of money on the table in the NBA. A big guy that can, again, he can drive through the lane, he can shoot the three, he can pass the ball. I think that's a huge part of what European basketball is. But I do agree that it's weird that obviously we're in Europe, but I find it much more accessible to find an NBA game or clips of the NBA than to watch a game of European basketball. Yeah.
Well, I think that to round off everything there, then I think we're all in agreement that the European style of basketball is a much preferred and more enjoyable style of basketball. Yes, the highlights of the NBA are good, but it's the substance, as Marcos said, behind it that is getting missed or not appreciated. I think maybe if one thing can come out of this debate, and if other people are watching it, is possibly to explore European basketball a little bit more. Watch the Spanish leagues. Watch even the Serbian leagues, the Lithuanian leagues. Broaden your horizons. And if you want to be an ultimate, product of basketball, people don't say, well, there's many players around the world that have benefited from commercial profiling. LeBron James being one of them. He was a star before he was a star. And then you have someone like Doncic. You have somebody like, who's his teammate?
Porzingis.
Oh, what a player. What a player.
Well,
the guy that was booed when he went to New York. And then all of a sudden he just came alive and it was like, oh, and you see the New York fans visibly shrinking in their seats. Like, all right, yeah, we made a mistake. Well, give him a chance. I mean, what a player. He is fantastic. He is fantastic. But anyway, moving on. So I think we're all in agreement that the European style of basketball, the team element is the better basketball. It's what we want to see. And maybe as a club collectively, we can maybe do our bit to promote that a little bit more. Maybe we can find links to games and promote them on social media and try and develop or raise awareness of that aspect of the game. So yeah, there's our homework. Right, well, that's all for this one. So we'll say goodbye for that one. Thank you, guys.